Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I'm Shafiu Suleiman. Thank you very much for staying with us. It's Daily Politics, and it's reaching you live from Trust TV here in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. And our talking point today is the emergence of the APC and LP presidential running mates. And I have in the studio already, as I said, Jide Ojo and Shehuata. Let me start with Jide Ojo. Against, all the concerns, against all the advices, against all the threats, against all the, the consultations, the presidential flag bearer of the APC, Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has finally unveiled Kashim Shettima as his running mate. Before then, he was his Director General, I think, of the campaign organization. One that has been very consistent with providing the needed support and what have you. It is against also the wishes of the APC governors who thought, one of them should be the running mate. What do you make up with his bold decision in spite of all of this that I mentioned?
Thank you, Shafiu. Back at the Salah to all Muslim Ummah once again.
Right.
For me, politics is a game of number. And, these speculations have been on even before the expiration of June 17 for the final nominations that Kashim Shettima was being considered. But if you read Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's speech yesterday, he did say, as a Democrat, he needed to consult widely with different segments of APC before making the final choice. And the final choice isn't Asiwaju's own. It is the APC that have made that decision. If the APC says, look, it's someone else, it could have been someone else. But it's 30 years since we had this scenario playing out at the national level. And people are wondering, 30 years ago, MKO Abiola in Jos, after emerging as a standard bearer of Social Democratic Party, decided to, SDP decided to choose Ambassador Babagana Kingibe from the same Borno state to be the running mate of MK Abiola 30 years ago. Right. And people are wondering, is this a feeling of deja vu? Are we having a repeat of 1993? Because the similarities, even 30 years to 1993 was when we had the, the military imbroglio and all of that.
Very interesting.
Now, a lot of people have widely accepted and widely condemned.
There's
in equal measures.
Reactions.
In fact, we had Daniel Bala, who is the chieftain of APC, even openly resigning on TV.
Quitting the party.
Yesterday.
The other one didn't quit the party, but he quit, the campaign council, talking about the senator in Adamawa, Senator Abu, who resigned from the...
Abu, okay.
But then for Bwala, he quits the party completely.
What we need to know, I'm not a politician, but I'm a student of politics. You see, politics and morality are like oil and water. They don't mix. You see, on a moral ground, yes, for inclusive purpose, you should have chosen a Christian for this, for that. But as I've said on other platforms, first and foremost, was it a constitutional requirement? The answer is no. It wasn't part of your qualification requirement that you must choose
from
a different religion to yours, or from different ethnicity to yours. Imagine Peter Obi decided to choose
from the north. Well, for the purpose of balance. Anyway.
No. You know, the why I'm pointing that to you is that when he chose Donyo Okupe, people were like, oh, so there wasn't anybody in the entire north that you can even use as a placeholder. But that's to tell you that, you know, and let me just say very briefly before we go further, historically, issue of religion never used to be a very strong criteria or criterion for leadership. Let me say this. In Southwest, when Awolowo was the premier of the Southwestern region, Esel Akintola was a Christian like him. Awolowo was Jeremiah Awolowo. Esel Akintola was Samuel Latoke Akintola.
That's right.
Both of them were Christian.
Yeah. Okay, but then, Mr. Jido, you will come to that. You talked about 30 years. 30 years, and now there are, you know, so much differences. Some will tell you the political dynamics have changed, the configuration of the country, the understanding, political awareness, and what have you have also changed. So we'll talk about that. But then, he's actually raising a fundamental issue for a politician, you know, of this standing, talking about a presidential candidate. All he is concerned about is winning the election. Morality, or whatever you can call it, is secondary. So he had to take the decision he took, which many have reacted to differently. But managing the aftermath, you know, some would say, already there's a feeling of marginalization by the Christian communities. There is a feeling of marginalization already, you know, existing by the southeastern communities, you know, who felt that they're not part of the equation, and so on. And now, to compound it, I mean, the choice of Shettima, some would say, has further also deepened the concerns. How do you think, you know, your party and your principal, Senator Bola Tinubu, will be able to handle this going forward?
Thank you so much. That is a very interesting question. You know, the feeling of marginalization you were talking about, I think if I will put it this way, all Nigerians are marginalized. The reason why I said that all Nigerians are marginalized is that...
At what level? Here we are talking about political inclusivity.
Absolutely. No, all Nigerians are marginalized because, you know, since the advent of this present trends of democratic system of governance since 1999, you know, we have been so deprived to the extent that, you know, an ordinary Nigerian has not reaped the fruits of democracy. So that is why I said all Nigerians are marginalized, to the extent that our political stakeholders has pushed Nigerian, or there's this issue of you know, you have to consider the religion you belong to before.
The issue of competence and so meritocracy
we tend to relegate the issue of competence to the background, while we trump the issue of ethnicity, religion, and all that to the front. So that, like the political analyst said, you know, leadership. When considering leadership, we don't have to. Religion does not really determine, or morality does not determine who a good leader be. So, like looking at Kashim Shettima, from his track records and his personality, this is a governor that was a governor in Borno State, where we have the issue of the insurgency, the Boko Haram. His track record clearly shows that he was competent.
It also built part of the baggage. We'll talk about that.
You know, he was competent, and he was able to.
Because yes, Nigerians are beginning to throw up issues. Okay, now, Mr. Chidojo, you know, looking at the decision and the reactions, you know, earlier you were talking about how who was it that was reacting? A number of prominent Nigerians have reacted differently.
Sure.
I've heard that of Yakasai, Tanko Yakasai, a PDP chieftain, an elder statesman, who said there's nothing wrong with it. Perhaps for those who think it will not fly, it will certainly fly, and it's winnable, because it happens in 30 years ago, just like you said. And he also, in a way, advanced the reasons why Tinubu had to go this way. He's concerned about, where the votes will come, the numbers. He said it is not possible for you to, pick from the Christian minorities, for instance, in the north, and and neglect, the Muslim majority, and you expect to win an election. So it became a very difficult, decision to take. But beyond this, I've had former spokesperson of the Arewa Consultative Forum, Anthony Sani, also talking about the sensibilities. It shows that candidate Tinubu did not put into consideration all of this, especially the feeling, the sensitivity that comes with balancing the ticket. How do you think? How would you interpret these concerns?
Again, let me take it at the subnational level before I come to the national. Because you see, facts don't lie. Facts do not lie. I'm a Christian by faith, but I don't wear it as a toga because I believe your religion is personal to you. Many of the people are just shouting on rooftops, being sanctimonious. Let me give you few instances, and statistics are coming out. Right now, and I'm talking of 2022, in the Southwest, 6 Southwest region, 6 states in the Southwest, only one of the governors is a Muslim. And only 3 has a Muslim deputy. And look at Edo. Edo North has a sizable Muslim community.
That's right.
Philip Shaibu is a Christian, just like Obaseki. Evans did not fall. In many other states, even where there are sizable, people of other faith, we have had people not minding going Muslim or Christian, and it didn't raise issues. Why should it raise issue at the national level? And people who are breaking their heads, they have choice. There are 18 political parties. If you didn't like what APC has presented, you can go obedient, you can go articulate. But the bottom line is that every political party has to do what will make it to win power. Because the ultimate goal of a political party is to get into government, to form a government. They are not, this is not an interfaith war. This is not an interfaith competition. The Constitution is silent on how, whether you pick a poor man or a big man. If for Atiku, you can even see the dilemma. For PDP, it's not even now Christian Muslim. It's about even, why did you choose this one, who is also a Christian, and not choose this one, who is also a Christian from the same South?
Thank you very much for staying with us. And now the discussion commencing. Let me start with arms free. The task of governing a country like Nigeria. At the moment, we are talking about over 200 million people, about 270 million, so to speak, and it's still growing. By 2050, the projection is Nigeria will be the 6th most populous country in the world. Well, that aside, we have a country that has a lot of complexities. About 250 or 500 ethnic groups, various religious faiths, various interests, regional, interests, political interests, religious interests, and so on and so forth. The complexities are just too much, too many. We have someone at the helm of affairs, President Muhammadu Buhari, who has been running the affairs of the country in the last 7 years. And now, in his last lap, he said the enormity of the task on him is actually enormous, and he's eager to leave. How do you react to this statement by the president?
Yeah, first of all, Nigeria is not the only country in the world with complexities. You know, I don't want to make comparisons with countries that are not democracies. If you look at China, for example, using the analogy of population, China is governing over 1 billion people. We are even not yet halfway there in terms of population. I'm talking about the complexities of the national challenges that we have. All of these,
even though the governance systems are not the same.
Yes, absolutely, they are not the same. But the point I'm trying to make is there are over 150 countries, maybe 180 countries in the world, and every country within the limits of its own resources, its own leadership, is grappling with that challenge. So what President Buhari is essentially saying was that he has not been on the job in the last 7 years. He practically has been just occupying space within the presidency.
But to be fair to him, he did mention that Nigerians must have appreciated the sacrifices he has been making, and they have been making in the last 7 years, which means they are actually responding to the challenges.
Yes, but when you talk about sacrifices, who's actually making the sacrifices? Is it the Nigerian that is currently homeless because of insecurity? Is it the Nigerian that has dropped into, more Nigerians have dropped into poverty, than the president met when he came on board? So we should talk about sacrifices advisedly. We should talk about sacrifices from the point of view of citizens who suffer from the lack of capacity from leadership of the country. And this is not just about the president alone. We talk about governors, we talk about local government chairmen. So leadership has failed us repeatedly. And so when the president talks about not being able to go to his house, you understand, in a year, there are people who have been away from their homes as refugees for the last 10 years. Some have been away for since the president came on board. There are officers and men and women who have lost their lives trying to defend the country. So is that the president even has a palatial mansion at Aso Rock where he can have all the luxuries he wants. So he even talked about having a house in Katsina, having a house in Kaduna. Many Nigerians do not have those luxuries, and those were the Nigerians in the first place who believed in the president and went out of their way. Some remember before the 2015 election, people gave away their pension, people gave away savings to elect, to ensure that President Buhari is elected. And so he cannot come back 7 years after and be, giving some of these excuses and all of that. He has the power to do a lot of things, and so far, really many Nigerians are disappointed by, what the president has put up.
Okay, Mr. Nelson.
Yes.
Looking at what the president has said, and perhaps the situation on ground, he talks about capacity.
That's right.
Before the emergence of his administration, the APC and all other people outside government have been very good at criticizing the government failure in addressing issues of governance. At some point, they call the former president, clueless, and so on and so forth. They're very quick at pinpointing some of the remedies to the problems and what have you. But today, they're singing different songs. Is it that they didn't consider the enormity of the task before them? Or is it that they are carried away by the euphoria of taking the mantle of leadership?
Thank you, Sefiu. This reminds me of a lecturer who was a Marxist when he was in the classroom, and when he was eventually appointed into government. And by the time he paid a visit to the school one day, and his students came and said, they asked him, "Sir, we see that all those lofty ideologies you used to teach us and all that, that you're singing different tune. And he said, then he was just a conductor. He was just a conductor. Now that he's at the driver's seat, then he can see very clearly where there is pothole and all that. So that is to say that maybe, like you rightly said, APC was making promises based on what they think they can do at that time. But getting into power. But sincerely, if you have, the question should be, why is it that each administration that comes, each person that comes into power, we keep hearing the same complaint over and over again? Is it about the structure of our country that is not enabling people in power to deliver?
Yeah, we have to interrogate that anyway. I don't know, maybe drive at the point. That is part of the things we have to really interrogate.
Okay. Now, if he said that in most advanced democracies, not even advanced democracies, it should be 7 years into administration, what we should be thinking of is how to, this is home stretch now, a year to go, you start taking stock, how to ensure that your legacies, those things you have started, and the ones that are 50%, that are 70%, the ones that are already concluded, how do you ensure that after you leave office, those things continue to benefit, not to start lamenting that you are eager to go, the governance is tough and all that. Governance is tough anyway. There is nowhere in the world, even
right from day one, you need to know that you are venturing into...
Even at community level, if you are a community leader, you will know. But Sefiu, let's look at it this way. What we're having here is the evidence of economic pressure that is coming on average Nigerians. And we can't take it away from minus or plus. If you're economically under pressure, there is nothing you cannot do. And that is what the manifestation of what you are seeing. And the president is becoming uncomfortable. He can't wait to just jump out of that
helpless
place.
Okay, if I get the word, you know. But then let's look at the impediments. You know, just let's take it from the economic point of view. You know, based on the disposition, if you like, or the comments of the government when it came on board, you know, it came to meet what they call at that point almost empty treasury. You know, a country sliding into recession. You know, shortly they got there, the country plunged into recession. You know, and then come the decline in oil revenue. You know, then came the COVID disruptions and what have you. But in spite of that, you know, they take the credit of taking the country out of recession the first time. They also took another credit of moving the country out of recession after the pandemic and so on. And then they also take, credit of the fact that they were able to sustain government in spite of all of these challenges, pay salaries. The initial impression is that before they came, salary is almost getting difficult to pay and what have you. Can we say it is the enormity or the overwhelming, you know, economic decline or nose-diving indices that made the government not to perform as it were?
Yeah, absolutely. We cannot run away from the fact that when the APC government and their co-travelers came on board, there were lots of challenges. There were enormous challenges. And those were the same challenges that they had engaged in the campaign period, leading up to 2015. And they faulted the ruling party at the time. And they threw a lot of stones at the ruling party, described the ruling party in very uncomplimentary language, defined the ruling party as not competent to govern. And then they were given the opportunity by Nigerians because Nigerians believed that message.
Yeah, fundamentally in the area of security.
Exactly, and also in the area of corruption.
Fighting corruption.
Fighting corruption, because the citizens could also see that some of the economic woes you talk about were also connected to waste, to a lot of illicit financial flows, to a lot of, the citizens realized that there was enough for everybody's need, but not enough for everybody's greed. And so the Buhari mandate was meant to come and fix a number of things within Nigeria's fiscal structure. Yes, because you can't be a man out, having economic challenges, and you still go for, luxurious things and things like that. So you have to now cut things. You have to now have some form of balancing. What do you really need in terms of, your spending and all of that? Buhari came on board for 6 months, never appointed a cabinet. There was no direction for the government of the country. And naturally, where there's no direction, the country just goes south. And so economically, the country went south. In terms of investments, the country went south because investors need to know your own plan for the country.
You have to build investors' confidence.
You understand? So the first 6 months was, actually the country just being at sea and, no clear-cut direction. That was fundamental mistake number one, and not just because there were enormous challenges. So there were enormous challenges. You came on board first 6 months. You did nothing to engage apart from backdoor consultations that people did not really understand what. So before, if you realize the time around the elections, after the elections when Buhari was elected, people started falling in place. There was some form of discipline. People were resuming work. Exactly.
The body language.
Yeah, there was
the body language
thing.
Of the president.
Yes, in fact, I remember at the time I was in a taxi in Abuja here, and the driver was saying to me, "Oh, my papers are about to expire. In fact, I need to go and fix them now because this new sheriff in town is here, and he's not going to tolerate nonsense, so I don't want any problems."
There was some consistency in power supply.
Exactly.
Virtually things are beginning to take shape.
But it's like when the man now finally came on board, people just saw that, it was business as usual. And that groundswell of expectation, that honeymoon period within which he could push through many far-reaching reforms, he was not able to do it because the time was just, practically frittered away. And then the fundamental question that we in civil society expected Buhari to address was, in terms of the economy, was a question around diversification of the economy.
Thank you very much for staying with us. It's Daily Politics, and our talking point is tackling insecurity in Nigeria. Now, let me start with Yahuza Gezo. I look at the fundamental responsibility of every government. The primary responsibility is to provide security of lives and property, and to also guarantee the welfare of the citizens. That is the essence and the reason behind the existence of every government. Nigeria, like many other countries, no country is free from insecurity, for instance, but then one has more challenges than the other. Nigeria has been battling issues of insecurity, but some will say we never had it this big, this wild, because of the spread across the country. Let me first of all, by way of laying a background, what are the factors, militating against our ability to reduce to the barest minimum the level of insecurity we're witnessing in the country today?
Well, I think not really to discuss our ability, but rather to look at inability. Because if we have
nothing is being done,
if
you say inability, it means nothing is being done.
If you say nothing is being done, you are very correct. Why? Because of justifications that I'll give. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari have promised several times during his campaign in 2003, 2007, 2011, and 2015, and he even wept in between and says Nigeria has been bankrupt. So he promised Nigerians to provide security as one of the major cardinal of what objective of his government. Nigerians have gone through all difficulties and hardship by contributing and financing his campaign and his presidential campaign all through, where they scratched even a card, and many people even sold out their houses in order to deposit money for Buhari to have emerged as a president. Many also refused to give out money for purchase of procurement of Maggi in their house, salt and other things. They denied their family sole responsibilities.
But insecurity in Nigeria is beyond Buhari. I mean,
Well,
it predates Buhari.
Well,
There has been security challenges in the country even before the emergence of this
notwithstanding, we look at
administration.
when he said that he promised that he was going to deal with it.
Okay, you're taking on him based on the
Yes,
promise.
of course. Yes, of course.
Right.
But fortunately and unfortunately, when you look at it, we have this government cannot deal with the corruption within the cycle of the security agencies. This government was unable to manage, even provide arm and armament, modern arm and
When
armament.
you say corruption, what do you mean by that?
Well,
are there, confirmed cases of people frittering away or diverting money?
Absolutely. Look at the profile. Look at the profile of the security personnel that we have. Look at how young majors, young captains, young ASPs, how the type of houses they are buying, the type of cars they are using.
But nobody can establish that it is money meant for government or for...
We have evidences. We have our facts. We are not speaking based on speculations.
Okay.
And I want to tell you that a government inability to manage, it was made mention. Let me give you even 2 instances. Whereby the former chief of army staff who died in a plane crash in Kaduna made mention before the Senate Committee on Army when he was presenting a report when they asked him how the money was spent. He gave them 3 answers, which I am still asking Buhari administration and the seat bonus of the Senate to respond to those questions. You know who give your money? You know how much you give them? They are in my office. Go and invite them to come and give you an answer. That is one. Second, a statement credited to the National Security Advisor at one time through BBC, where he made mention. I know he speaks Hausa more than me, and he was not forced. And the National Security Advisor is the overseer of all the security agencies. He made mention that money in millions of dollars have been given out to security agencies for procurement of armament and capacity building, training and retraining, among other things. But I didn't see the armament. I don't know where the money is, and I don't know how the money is spent, and I cannot say anything. Okay. So with this, these are part of the adequate justifications that we can tell everybody that Buhari administration have woefully felt in terms of dealing with corruption, because these only 2 items out of 72 different items that I have to justify corruption in Buhari administration in the cycle and management of security have proven to you and to our viewers that Buhari administration have failed in terms of managing corruption, have been part of the reasons why the government was unable to manage.
Is it to say investigation is not being carried out? Anyway, security issues are not issues perhaps that may be public, especially when you're talking about investigations of this caliber. But then I'm not justifying or giving excuses. Beyond corruption now, we're laying a background, looking at what we have today in Nigeria. Yes, he talked about what is happening within the security sector. Perhaps that could be one of the reasons why it's still prevailing. But before the coming of the administration, there have been security issues around Boko Haram in the northeast. The farmers' hardest conflict has been an existential one. The issue of piracy, and so on, oil bunkering in the southeast, and the south. The issue of violent agitation, even by the IPOP, even though then it wasn't that pronounced. So these are security issues that the government perhaps inherited. We are looking at, the factors or the enabling factors. What brought about this? For the Boko Haram, some would say substantially the lack of social, governance presence, poverty, cultural issues, and so on. For the piracy, bunkering and the rest of it has to be economic in its right, as a reason. The farmers' hardest conflict has also been a social problem that has been with us. But what are the underlying factors beyond this that are precipitating this insecurity we're witnessing today?
All right, thank you, my brother. my brother here, Dr. Getso, has spoken so much. He has broken the ice, and then looking from that aspect, he talked about a major factor here when he laid it out that corruption is a major factor affecting insecurity or affecting our security system in Nigeria. And when you talked about corruption, I think he's referring to the lack of maximization of our security budget. Are you me? Where money meant for arms are diverted into public funds. And then recently you see 1 or 2 years have had, even though it has come to the public domain that no, it is not the house of the former chief of army staff, rather it is a house of a contractor. Somehow there is a chief in something, and then if it's a chief in something. I don't mean to call it thief, I mean a chief. So in another way, you should begin to see that certain things are not being properly laid out. Then outside that, let's look at it from this perspective. You should look at the appointment of the head of service, the people we call the service chiefs. Sorry, they have the service chiefs. Actually, sorry about it.
Yeah, I don't want you to keep making this mistake. They are service chiefs.
They are service chiefs.
We have them in the army, in the navy, in the air force.
Agreed. Yes, no, they are service chiefs. And then you begin to look at their capacity. In what area have they been able to deliver as a service chief? Now you should look at their profile holistically, like my brother doctor said. You see, their insecurity alone justify them to be a problem to our system.
How?
Yes, you employ a man that you should come and take over a system. A man whose background checks have pointed to so many incompetencies. A man,
how do you mean? We are talking about army generals who have been in the service.
No. Not all generals are not generals.
Who have gone to war, who have been in the theater of operations. And you call them not competent to handle.
Not to that extent. You don't make your appointment based on that fact. Otherwise, you employ a monkey to guide a lion. Are you me? You employ a monkey to guide a lion.
Yeah, but let's speak to the issues.
The issues here is...
Yeah, beyond, because if you're talking about the leadership of the various services, they don't just run the affairs of the services. There are people in the hierarchy. There are a number of people. There are operational commanders. There are people in the theater of operations.
You need the man who is attuned.
There are people in the procurement. Every aspect of the military has a structure.
But you must need the man who is...
why should you blame it on...
No, we blame it on them because, you see, for instance, Nigerians are blaming it on the CNC.
Yeah.
Today we blame the commander-in-chief because of the failure. That he's unable to govern Nigeria, to protect Nigeria to its normal standard. Why is it so? Because he has taken over leadership position. So when you want to appoint somebody
to take the primary
responsibility of government. So when you want to employ somebody, when I mean employ, is by appointment. Appointment of Mr. President is one of the major problems creating insecurity in Nigeria. The aloofness of Mr. President's appointees, even in the midst of threatening insecurity, is one of the problems we have.
But they're all over the place providing leadership.
Their leadership cannot meet up to par.
Take, for instance, the current Chief of Defense Staff, General Lucky Irabo, is all over the place providing leadership, is at the front line, is always there with the commanders, and so on.
Let me ask you a question here. The man taking over the affairs when he got to Kuje prison, and he went there and said, "Oh, we are working on this. We're always on top of the situation." That has become our cultural language now. We are on top of the situation. Look at him physically, X-ray him emotionally, X-ray him in all aspects of life. Does he have anything security in himself? The man we are calling as a minister of defense.
What do you expect?
Has he been able to defend himself to an extent?
Well, but we're not talking about defending individuals.
No, it is the individual that constitutes the leadership of positions.
Okay, but we're digressing from the issues. We're talking about root causes of these things.
These are part of the root causes.
Beyond the personnel, some will say, I perhaps expect that perhaps you'll be talking about, I did mention, there is absence of governance, that is deficit of governance. There is also economic benefit derivable. Perhaps that was also what brought about corruption that he's talking about, allegation of corruption. Again, there are basic requirements of every government. And people need to have basic security, food security, shelter, social security, and the rest of it. How has all of this, the failure of this, culminated into where we are today? That is the question.
I agree with you. We must take this to the root cause of it, and which is where we are. We have discussed the issues of corruption. I am not talking about leadership approach to issues. And also you must talk about unemployment in Nigeria. Youth restiveness is also a major factor. You're talking about the factor affecting that brought us to where we are today. And if we have talked about corruption, we must talk about leadership. And when we talk about leadership, we must talk about the unemployment of the youth. Youth restiveness is a major factor. What we have today, the contemporary insecurity, otherwise known as banditry, is as a result of unemployment. It started from when you are going to a particular state, you see the youth come to a place, trying to have a roadblocks and say you are accessing our territory, we want to repair the roads. You see some of the youth getting sands to sandfill the roads, where government has failed. In an attempt to do that, some persons get disgruntled. This man that just passed with his Mercedes-Benz refused to drop something for the boys. Are you in me? So the failures from these people, failing to appreciate these people, also metamorphose into them becoming another issues. And then you begin to have people saying, because we are the one doing these things, you cannot access our territory. And because they have to repair them, they become another issues that we are fighting today. So because I have nothing to do, so you talk about what? Youth restiveness, unemployment. We have so much unemployed soldiers parading themselves on the street. Why is it so? Because government has failed to take responsibility. So when we talk about failure of government, it is in their inability to assemble a team that's going to protect lives, properties, and all of that. But the basic we need is just the lives and properties.
Okay. What role, perhaps, is because you talked about, corruption within the system, especially, it is obvious, trillions of naira have been expended in the last 10 years, in the area of security. Huge amount of money has been set aside for, security logistics, like the fighting aircrafts, and what have you, armaments and the rest of it. But all of this is coming at a time Nigeria as a country also has a defense industry corporation, which has saddled the responsibility of designing, producing, and delivering some of those critical platforms that we need. Why do you see, a failure to address this or to make this effective, making us to go in search of some of this logistics that we're looking for, that would have to require this huge amount of money that we're expending and we're not seeing the results?
Well, if you look at it on a point of view for the fact that the reasons why we normally go for purchase or procurement of armament rather than inducing the imputed amount of money to defense, to DICON, that is the company that is responsible for
providing
production.
The armament. Okay, thank you very much for staying with us. It's still Daily Politics, and today we're looking at issues around the polity, especially issues regarding the Osun governorship election. The deadline for the submission of candidates' names to INEC and their running mates, among other issues in the polity. So let's go straight to Mr. Nsenwa Nwagu, who is right now in Osun State. Perhaps maybe we'll commence with the preparations for the Osun 2022 governorship election. Mr. Nsenwa, you are on ground right now in Osun State, and perhaps you must have witnessed, the political atmosphere and how it is getting charged. Yesterday there was, the grand finale of the campaign of the APC, where issues were raised. The statement made by the presidential candidate of the APC is still reverberating. Issues around mushroom political parties, and of course people laboring to death or something like that. It has been generating a lot of reaction. What is the general mood in Osun State with regards to the preparation ahead of Saturday?
We are interested in the process. Independent National Electoral Commission 2 days ago held the stakeholders meeting where the political parties were told INEC's preparation and expectation. And then today, the political parties, 15 of them, came to sign the peace accord. Campaigns are ongoing. The hate speech and such other issues are issues generally that INEC will have to pay attention to. But for some of us, we're interested in seeing to ensure that there are peaceful, credible, fair election. And INEC is saying that it is prepared, that the sensitive materials are already in the states, and that in due course they will be dispatched to the centers event where they will get to the polling units.
Okay.
So the Inspector General of Police was also at that stakeholders meeting, informed that 21,000 policemen will be deployed for the Osun election. And of course, you know that NCDC and the rest of the people in the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security will also be part. Osun prides itself as the most peaceful state in where is not as charged as you are saying. There are pockets of stars and billboards of some people. We have had conversations around the activities of cult groups and the rest. But all in all, both the traditional institutions, they are bringing authority to question on Saturday.
Right. Okay. You talked about the atmosphere, especially with regards to the need to maintain the peace. The peace accord signed by the 15 political parties is coming at a time there is also concerns around some level of violence that is erupting. We've seen how there were reports indicating that some of the candidates were attacked. I think that of Labour and the other political party, one's house was raised along the line. You talk about the activities of cult groups, and this is a very volatile state. Looking at the level of the contest now, especially among the two leading parties. How do you think this going to the Saturday election? How do you think this would define, how the election is going to be conducted?
Supporting the Independent National Electoral Commission and the security agencies, the DIG operation is leading the charge. We may witness a voter inducement and all of those things, but I can tell you that most here are not, they don't represent the reality of what ground is. There are cool issues, but they are not a volatile state, because the people of the states are ready for elections, and that will be peaceful. We think that the times leading to the election may be a bit tensed, but at the end is one people, and that Osun is greater than all of them, and they are committed to ensuring that there will be peaceful elections.
Yeah, talking about one of the major concerns, we've seen how it featured prominently in the last election, that is the Ekiti governorship election, the issue of voter inducement. In the build-up to this election, there has been a lot of concerns with regards to how many politics would take center stage, especially looking at the contenders and their deep pockets. They are especially also their comments with regards to how they intend to deploy resources to buy the conscience of the people. how are the people responding to this? You are civil society organizations. I'm sure you must have been going around perhaps also to educate the voters with regards to the importance of their franchise. How are they responding to, I mean, some of these calls and advocacy vis-a-vis the challenge posed by money politics? Okay, well, we get Mr. Nwogu to respond to that question. Let's talk to Barrister Sunusi Musa, political affairs analyst. You've had some of the, I mean, you had the conversation with Dr. Ezenwa, you know, who has been talking to us concerning the build-up to the Saturday governorship election in Osun State. If you look at, you know, what happened in in Ekiti governorship election that was conducted a few weeks ago, and the expectations, you know, towards the Osun governorship election, vis-a-vis the lessons learned, what's your general, I mean, overview or assessment of the preparation so far?
The preparation for the INEC or
the preparation for the election now?
You see, if you look at it, INEC has been improving its the way it conducts election progressively from 1999 to date. If you see that every year you get improvement on, I think with the exception of 2007 election, which was really something that nobody wants to remember. I think progressively INEC is getting it right, and rigging is becoming more difficult to do, and so you see that when the umpire is appeared to be fair to everybody, you see that the level of disappointment normally goes down, and I think the parties are doing their best also to see that they win the heart of the people on the day of the election.
But we're getting to see, you know, in as much as rigging is becoming difficult as a result of the transformation in the electoral process, especially driven by technology.
Yeah.
But then one of the critical or two critical concerns to INEC and other stakeholders is, of course, the issue of vote buying. Voter inducement, you know, involvement of money in politics and what have you. And then they're also concerned about the last election in Ekiti. There's also substantial reduction in the number of people that participated. Some sort of voter apathy was witnessed. Yeah. So looking at, the Osun governorship election coming almost at the same time, do we anticipate, even though clearly some will say the issue of money will certainly feature in the Osun election. But do you see also the voter apathy replicating in Osun?
Well, actually, on the issue of money, I think we are progressing in the sense that before, apart from the inducement with money, then we also have the rigging that was going on. Then we are now coming to a situation where, let's say, we have succeeded in halting the rigging process, which is, we say we are getting it right. Then progressively, as this economy improves and people get more interested in participating in the process, that one too will be checked. Yeah, but this I think a gradual process which people must be patient enough to see that we cannot just change the society in a day. With regard to voter apathy, I can't say because I'm not from Osun, so I think it's people that are there like Mr. Ezenwa, who is on the ground, I may likely say that because this I think that you must have the pulse, to know what may likely. But I think if the trend of the number of people that we see on the social media going out to collect voter PVCs now, maybe this will be a testing ground for those of them that already have the PVC to show how they can be politically active in the process.
Yeah, but looking at the actors, let's look at the actors, because they also constitute or define, how the conduct of the election will be. Mr. Ezenwa was talking about the peace accord, that was signed by political parties. But we're beginning to see also statements overheating the polity in Oshun from both sides, to those who are, making reference to the political parties as mushroom political parties and all of that. And then we've also had, one of the candidates also talking about how he's intending to deploy resources, currencies, not even for, local currencies, even foreign currencies to buy the conscience of the. So we're beginning to see, the actors, how do you see them aligning to this trajectory or the vision of INEC of having a peaceful and a credible exercise?
Not for statements. Statements are political statements are normal, and when it's come to election time, of course, emotion will go high. Then you expect some statement that in an ordinary situation, because you call some political parties mushroom. Personally, I don't see that as anything that are hitting the polity. But with regard to
saying that they will label to death, for instance, isn't that?
What's bad about praying for an opponent to continue laboring to death without succeeding in politics? This is the way I see it. But with regards to the issue of deploying resources, money, I have not seen the statement actually. So, but if a candidate said that, it's quite unfortunate, and INEC should be able to look at it, and maybe the police, because this is one of the reasons why that people are always agitating for you need to break INEC. You should allow INEC to concentrate on the election, the management of the election, then have another body that will manage the political party activities. Then you have the offenses, this kind of offenses that you now give another body. But now the work is actually too much for INEC. It manages supervises the political parties. Then yes, and unfortunately it doesn't have the prosecutory power. Because once now any of the election or electoral offenses, it has to rely on the police and to
we're beginning to see the police also taking up the challenge. The IG has talked about perhaps monitoring and ensuring that those involved in such activities are actually tamed and what have you.